voluntary trade. For example, just as American customers are free to purchase as many domestic automobiles as they choose, so they should be free to buy as many Japanese cars as they please. That Japanese manufacturers are of a different nationality, ethnic group, or race than American customers is irrelevant. International free trade is simply the principle of individual rights applied to economic relationships across national boundaries. If an American believes that he should buy American out of loyalty to the United States, that is his right as an individual consumer, although it's ignorant as hell of economics. But he should not vote for tariffs and trade barriers that make it more expensive or even impossible for other Americans to buy imported goods. The essence of America is individual rights. This principle includes the right of individuals to trade freely with other individuals, both at home and abroad. Restricting free trade is violating the right of men to trade freely with individuals of other countries. And that restriction of individual rights is what is truly un-American. Economically, the results of free trade are mutually increased prosperity. In his great work, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith provided the economic argument in favor of free trade. Quote, "In every country, it always is and must be the interest of the great body of the people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest." Unquote from Adam Smith. So that if the men of nation X manufacture widgets less expensively than do the men of nation Y, it is to the interest of the citizens of nation Y to purchase the foreign-made widgets. If the Americans, for example, manufacture computers less expensively than do the South Koreans, then the frugal policy for the Koreans is to purchase American computers. Adam Smith understood this more than 225 years ago. He understood it better than most educated people do today, or probably better than most economists do today. He pointed out that every country has specific natural advantages in terms of mineral resources, rivers and streams, fertile lands, location, weather, topography, etc., that gives them a competitive advantage over other lands in the production of various commodities. France, for example, Smith pointed out, has the climate and terrain enabling its inhabitants to produce high-quality wines at a relatively low cost. Adam Smith, a Scot, pointed out that the Scots, too, could produce excellent wines if they desired to. But given Scotland's colder climate, the production of Scottish wine would require the allocation of so much time, labor, and resources that the resulting product would be prohibitively expensive. It was far cheaper and wiser for the Scots to produce the goods regarding whose manufacture they held the natural advantage, and then to trade with the French for wine. There was a division of labor involved. The road to prosperity is for individuals and countries to produce what each excels at and then to trade peacefully with men all over the globe for the other goods that they desire. A further advantage of free trade, as mentioned, is that by promoting cooperative and mutually beneficial relations between countries, free trade tends to reduce tensions and national rivalries, and so, at least to some degree, to function as a spur to peace. Tariffs and trade barriers, on the other hand, increase mutual suspicions and antagonisms and result in strained relations between countries. To the extent that economic factors are responsible for wars, and honestly, I think that that's exaggerated. I think Marx is wrong on this, I think, as he is on everything. I don't think economics is primarily responsible for war. But to the extent that economic factors are responsible for wars, then restrictions on free trade are a major part of them. Two, we, the free and the wealthy of the capitalist world, must stand up and proudly proclaim the moral, political, and economic superiority of our system to that of the blood-drenched statist regimes around the globe. We must boldly announce that it is only by enacting in their own countries the principles of individual rights, limited government, political economic freedom, and capitalism that the oppressed and destitute peoples of the world will achieve freedom and affluence. In this regard, the Ayn Rand Institute published an op-ed essay by a citizen of Zimbabwe, a nation suffering under the yoke of the Marxist tyrant Robert Mugabe. The writer, Stephen Tennant, describes numerous crimes committed by Mugabe's regime. The ongoing beatings, torture, rape, and murder of thousands of Zimbabwean citizens on the dictator's orders. He points out that today, because of the regime's theft of thousands of productive farms, nearly 8 million Zimbabweans face starvation. He then concludes his piece with an appeal to America for help. He says, quote, "On behalf of the Zimbabweans who desire to live as human beings, free from the shackles of Mugabe's tyranny, I have a favor to ask of you, America. No, it is not a request for a check or some other handout, nor is it a request to send over your 4th Infantry Division to liberate us. Our suffering does not give us a right to your wealth or to the lives of your brave soldiers. No, the favor I have to ask is very different and far simpler. America, stop apologizing for your greatness. Stand up and proudly champion the principles that have enabled you to earn your wealth and power, capitalism, and the individual's inalienable rights to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. Condemn every form of tyranny and tell the world that the political system created by your founders is the only noble system the world has ever seen. Tell every individual across the globe that no matter if he is black, white, Arab, or whatever, the only path to freedom and prosperity is through the ideas contained in your Constitution and Bill of Rights. To modify a saying from one of your great founders, George Washington, proclaim a standard to which the wise and the just can repair. To do so costs you nothing and will achieve much. You will give hope and inspiration to every individual in Zimbabwe, Iran, Hong Kong, Iraq, or elsewhere who is actually fighting for his liberty. You will earn the respect of freedom-loving people the world over, the only world opinion it could ever make sense to win. And by your moral certainty, you will strike fear in the hearts of your enemies and any tyrant who dares to violate the rights of the individual. America, when you refuse to speak out against evil, and worse, when you apologize for your virtues, you discourage those who love liberty and give hope to the Mugabes of the world. But when you proudly and guiltlessly stand up for the good, you help move the world toward your ideals. America, your moral voice is at once your least costly and your most powerful weapon. A lonely individual from Zimbabwe asks of you only this: won't you use that voice? Unquote, from Stephen Tenet. If America follows Mr. Tenet's advice, it will truly become a beacon of liberty for all the oppressed peoples of the earth, even more than it already is. 3, freedom and prosperity are eminently obtainable by human beings. This is no longer simply a matter of theory. The history of the Western world in the past 200 years shows that, as does the spread of capitalism into Asia in the last 50 years. But although human beings have hungered, fought, and died for freedom throughout the ages, they have not yet understood its nature. They have failed to understand the philosophical principles that underlie and give rise to the need for it. Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged identify those underlying principles. Because the mind is man's tool of survival, and because the mind cannot and does not function under coercion, individual human beings must be left free to act on their own rational judgment. Individual human beings have a right to their own life. They have a right to live by their survival instinct, by their own thinking, and consequently, they must be protected from the initiation of force against them. It is to protect men's rights to their own lives and their rights to live by their own minds, to be guided by their survival instrument, that a limited constitutional government with a Bill of Rights must be established. After thousands of years of human struggle, Ayn Rand has provided the intellectual insights validating that struggle, showing that and why freedom is a necessity of human survival. We need to understand this. If we are to be effective activists on behalf of global freedom, we must understand the philosophical principles that make freedom necessary and possible. We must read and comprehend Atlas Shrugged. We must encourage everybody we know to do the same. We must teach Ayn Rand's principles to our children and our students. We must incorporate these ideas into our activism on behalf of global capitalism. If we do that, if we campaign as fully knowledgeable intellectual activists, then our battle for global freedom will be won. The principles and practices of capitalism will be spread around the globe. And then the repression and the destitution of the communist and third world dictatorships will be gone. Then the individuals of those countries will be as free and as wealthy as we are. then we can all go to the next level of human creativity.